Well, happy Saturday, everybody. It is good to be back in the house. I am sports mental health empowerment coach and couple marriage and family therapist, Dr. Lauren Pitts. As you can see, I have my beautiful guest co-host today with me, Savannah D'Orazio. Yay!
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me today, Savannah. Ronnie is not with us today, sending warm vibes and much love and prayers to him and his family. We will see him back, God willing, next Saturday, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and ready to hit the ground running. It is a cold February morning in Texas, Savannah. What is it looking like in New York?
It is freezing here as well. Yesterday, the cold was so biting, I could barely feel my ears walking outside. It's a cold world.
Yeah, I hate to be cold. I'm like, oh my goodness. I was talking to some clients yesterday, and folk know that I have clients all over the world, and I was just getting irritated. I'm like, you know what? I'm sick of y'all people where it's sunny and hot and warm and beautiful and whatnot. But look, folks, it is good to be back on another Saturday, hot or cold. It doesn't make a difference. Just glad that I can feel whatever temperature it is. And here at HT, it is all about relationships and mental health and wellness and athletes. And we are all about bridging those gaps and creating those unique relationships, bringing everything together, because mental wellness is such a critical part of our lives as Black and Brown people all over the world. And everybody knows, Savannah, I am just diehard. I am so incredibly passionate about athletes and the athletic world and everything that you all go through in relationships and play in the whole 9 yards. So that's what it's all about. We have an amazing topic for you today. I'm going to tell you about that in a minute. I want to remind you about this amazing radio network that we're a part of, Heritage Sports Radio Network. We are airing right now on HSRN. I tell people we compete with ourselves. At 11 a.m., you can catch our rebroadcast. We're also on HSRN at 10 p.m. on Saturdays, and then again at 6 p.m. on Sundays. And look, folks, this is what I want you to know about HSRN. HSRN is empowering the HBCU's families, head, heart, and hands to deliver the impact that we all know it can. We have a lineup of great shows on HSRN. We don't want you to just tune in to HT. We want you to tune in to as many shows on there that you find relevant. We're talking about money. We're talking about everything, investing, real estate, everything that you could possibly imagine that is relevant to us as Black and Brown people. We are covering those very pertinent topics on every single solitary show every day on HSRN. So you want to go ahead and download that app from the App Store and go ahead and start logging into our shows. Look, folks, we're talking about a hot topic today. But before I get to that, I want to give you some HBCU news because it's some powerful stuff going on around the country today. So for everybody who's a basketball fan, it is NBA All-Star Weekend. But check this out. It is also the inaugural NBA HBCU Classic is today at 2:00 Eastern time, where Howard University is facing off with Morgan State University. They are rivals. It's going to be a dogfight today. Again, that is at 2:00 Eastern on TNT and on ESPN2. It's going to be televised from the Wolfstein Center at Cleveland State University. Actress and singer. I did not know that Keke Palmer was a singer. I knew that she was an actress. I didn't know that she sang. She's going to perform the national anthem and lift every voice and sing, and she's going to be accompanied by Howard's Showtime Marching Band. So that should absolutely be an amazing thing to tune into today. I know I'll be checking it out. So look, folks, today we're talking about conflict management and resolution, overcoming pride in your relationship. Here's the deal. Whether it's your relationship with sports, your relationship with your coaches, trainers, your teammates, or your relationship with your significant other. Being in a relationship, any relationship has its ups and downs. And what can be beneficial in that is when you are given the love and the support that you need in order to have a fruitful life, in order to have strong performance. But it's also times that it's inevitable that the people that we're connected to in these various relationship dynamics, Savannah, we hurt each other sometimes. Ego kicks in, pride kicks in, whether it's intentional or not is in a way it's irrelevant, but it kicks in. And when I reflect on that, I think about the different types of discord, if you will, that we have seen during athletic play. You know, folks get to fighting during basketball games. We know that during football season, there were some issues that went on with the Washington football team. And then the media was buzzing and going all crazy because during the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game, the coach slapped one of the players in the back of the head. All types of stuff goes on. And it's because relationships can be very, very, very complex. And when you factor in the fact that people have difficulty managing their conflict and even more difficulty resolving conflict, and then you add in that powerful 5-letter word of pride, especially when pride is being viewed in a negative way, it can foster resentment and lead to the end of the relationship altogether. So it is something that we absolutely positively are going to flesh out for you today. Savannah and I are going to rock out. We're going to be flowing back and forth. We're going to talk about pride in sports and pride in intimate relationships and family relationships and all type of stuff. So I want to ask you, I'm going to say some words, and we're going to call it a little quiz, Savannah.
Sure.
Going to give you some words associated with pride, and we're going to see if me, you, and our listeners have some pride that we need to iron out so that we can have healthier relationships. So, are you a prideful person? Have somebody ever called you prideful, opinionated, egotistical, judgmental, critical, envious, fault-finding, arrogant, disdainful, haughty, coveting, greedy, spiteful, and autocratic? Savannah, I am ashamed. I am ashamed to admit that I have been accused of being every single solitary one of those words, except for I've never had anybody accuse me of being autocratic, and I've never had anybody accuse me of being coveting or greedy. Nobody's ever accused me of being greedy. But other than that, I've been gut punched with every single last one of them. Mm-hmm. What the heck? How did we get there, Savannah? What's your opinion on that? What's wrong with us?
This is a great question. I want to start by saying that I too have been called many of those. I would say like not envious or spiteful. So, like, certain ones, it's like not much, but autocratic, judgmental for sure. A lot,
you said hands down.
Yeah, and I was thinking about our topic for this week and thinking about like, when did I learn about pride? Like, what does pride mean? How is that defined? And like, how does it also relate to sports, right?
Yeah.
And I'll circle back to like continuing to connect to the answer to that question, but I think about the word hubris, right? And that brings us back to like, okay, and we have, outside of the critique of Greek mythology still being a very persistent part of the academic curriculum for many children across the United States, like we all pretty much for the most part are familiar with certain stories that have been shared over time, right? And that have to do with the downfall of heroes being hubris. Hubris, definition of hubris is overbearing pride.
Yep.
That's hubris, hubris, hubris. In case anyone's not
Hmm.
familiar with that word, it
Hmm.
means overbearing pride.
Yep.
And that was the downfall of, to bring it back to sports, Achilles, right? The Achilles heel.
Hmm. Yep. There it is. That's where Achilles heel comes from.
Yeah. And so as I'm thinking about this and thinking about like how has pride taken a role in my life, both in
Hmm.
my own life, in
Mm.
my relationships with other people,
Yeah,
especially
yeah.
sports relationships. When you're talking about fights, I'm thinking, when was the last time I saw a sports fight? Last week at a high school game, right? Like at a high school game where a parent, okay, a
Yeah.
parent is feeling overbearing pride about whether
Yep.
or not their child gets played, what the coach's decisions are on the field, and then of
Yep.
course like how that man, and so what the relationship is there, whether or not apologies happen, all kinds of things, right? And so
Right.
as I'm thinking about like the word pride, and even just like
Mhm.
the origin, like when did I even learn about this, like what is this
Yep.
about, it is something that is totally human. So I think most
Hmm.
people, I mean,
And it's, yeah, it's normal. And let's look,
yeah,
go ahead and normalize it. Tell folks, stop
totally.
fronting. You have pride too. If you're breathing, you've got some pride in you that needs to be worked out. We'll prove it to you. Go ahead.
Totally. Yeah. And if you're listening and you felt like at least some of the words that were listed relate to an experience you've
Yeah.
had, yeah, that's like pride attacking us. And I think like, okay, well, for me, the analysis is, okay, when is pride appropriate and when can it
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
evil? And
Yeah.
then when is pride not, and where do we also learn these things from? So like I don't want to like dive too deep into any one of those things until we kind of like have
Hmm.
more of a focused conversation, so I'll let you also like lead us there. But that
Yeah.
for me was what came up, and I just want
Yeah.
to say that like every single word that you read, pretty much I'm like, oh yeah, oh yeah, that has
Yeah.
at least come up for me, be it in conversations, be it in a critique of another person as
Yep.
I'm talking, right? Like we could even be,
Yep.
you could be in a work relationship or have just gone to a work meeting and be like, oh, did you see that when this
Right.
person, didn't receive that feedback well, right? And
Right. Right.
reflecting on someone else's pride, right? And
Yep.
and
Yep.
anyway, it comes up a lot, and I would love to do a further deep dive about um, not just like the context in which we learn about pride, but also how it
Hmm.
manifests culturally in sports as well,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
and also how overcoming it can actually prove to be important for healthy relationships. I have to
Oh
say, like,
yeah.
had a huge like transformation evolution. And shout out to J. Cole for a second here, because he has a song called Pride is the Devil. And
Ooh.
it's a very powerful song. And
Hmm.
it's a song that when I listen to, I think a lot about my feelings around whether or not what he calls real legends can coexist, right? And about
Mm.
understanding that platforms and leadership is about sharing, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
about how pride plays into that. So again, I've given so many little things for us to
Hmm.
kind of
Look,
delve
dropping the
into,
little nuggets here and there.
but I'm going
Uh,
to follow your lead. So wherever you want to start, those are just my initial reflections on pride and relationships.
I want to start when you said, when was the first time we recognized it, right? Because it's not like somebody just woke up at like 25 and was full of pride, right? It's
Hmm.
something that's formed and developed and nurtured and massaged and fed.
Hmm.
What you feed grows over time. And when I think about, when was the first time that I became aware of pride? OMG. Savannah, a lot of those words that we talked about that I listed in the very beginning, I've been hearing those words since I was a little girl. You are so prideful. You have got to swallow your pride. I will tell you, and
Hmm.
again, this is not something that I'm proud of. When I was little, I stayed getting punished because of my pride. I would not apologize. If I did something or said something that was hurtful to somebody else, I wouldn't apologize. And you're going to fall out that chair when I tell you what my justification was for not apologizing. I'm lucky I'm still alive, Savannah. Like, I pushed the limits with my parents and my grandparents. I would say to them, why do you want me to say I'm sorry? I don't mean it. I'm not really sorry. No, I'm serious. I was that. So from probably the time I came out the womb and started talking, I have consistently, without fail, I have always been the type of person that I say what I mean what I say. I don't know that you can find anybody on the face of the planet that will say that Lauren is two-faced or backstabbing or that she talks out of both sides of her mouth. Trust and believe, if I say it, I mean it.
Yeah.
And I don't, and I'm, even as a kid, I was very, very deliberate and intentional in my word choice. I've always been that way. So if I go for what I call a kill shot, oh, I meant to say it. I meant for it to, and that's not something that I'm proud of. That there's no pride in that, right? It was a defense mechanism, Savannah. It was something that, because of some of the traumatic experiences that were going on in my life at the time, it became a protective factor for me. It was how I kept people up off of me, but it was wrong and it was unhealthy. So I would go in and I would not say I was sorry. I wouldn't. Why do you want me to say I'm sorry when I really don't mean it? Isn't the whole purpose of an apology to actually mean it? What I failed to understand in my youth is that in order to not have to apologize, you have to make a conscious decision to not deliberately say and do things that you know are going to hurt people, right? So now, today at 54, I'll be 55 this year. Now, today at 54, I'm equally deliberate and intentional in my word choice, but I work very hard to not go for the kill shot. I'll walk away before I go for the jugular because I don't want to have to be in a position to say I'm sorry. I don't want to have to be in a position to say I'm sorry because apologies need to be authentic. They need to come from a place of humility. And I believe that, even though we haven't gotten that far, I believe that humility is one of the primary cures for negative, prideful behavior. So yeah, it started in my youth, and I was well into my early 30s before I'm like, okay, this is a problem. This is really, really, really a problem. And it was, to your point, it was creating issues in my relationships, in work and, in society and in my intimate relationships.
When you talk about that, like, kill shot, right?
Mhm.
Is another way to describe that like delivery of feedback, or is it really just something that is like a fact about a person? Like, what is like the nature of it usually? Because I'm curious
Yeah.
if part of what doesn't allow you to apologize is that
Mhm.
it deals with someone else's pride, that maybe there's a belief that they have to overcome, or maybe that there's
Mhm.
a belief
Mhm.
that they have to, whatever. And it's not to say that any of it's like wrong or not. It's just
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
kind of about um, like why that is. You know what I'm saying? Because I
yeah,
think like there's pride on both sides of every dialogue, on every
yeah, yeah,
relationship, every
yeah.
interaction, you know?
Mhm.
And then there's also this like set of rules about pride that, listen, I grew up in a place where like if somebody stomped on your sneakers, okay, or like accidentally stepped on your shoes, it was valid for somebody to put their shoes up and be like, yo, clean that.
Are you serious?
I'm so serious. I'm so serious. Right?
Wow.
Right? And that's about pride, right? And that's a
Yeah, yeah.
and in other cultures, right? If you flipped it on its head,
Oh,
people,
yeah.
you're asking me to do what? And there might be a
Right,
fight,
right.
right?
I hadn't even thought about the cultural component, Savannah. That is, and again, in sports and out of sports, oh my goodness, I hadn't even thought about the role that cultural nuances play in the level of pride that people present with.
Right.
Speak to that a little bit more.
I have one anecdote that I will never forget ever in my life. I grew up with women. My
Mhm.
mom for the most part was a single mom. My dad was like in
Mhm.
and out of the picture, to be
Yeah, yeah.
like totally transparent. Now I have a great relationship and he's like more in it. So my
Mhm.
father is, I believe my father is a feminist.
Mhm.
He's actually been super supportive and cool about a lot of things that I think traditionally men his age or from his background aren't. And like
Yeah.
that's like why I give him that like title and whatever. So the point
Mhm.
is, there was a time in my life where I had to live with my father for the first time ever. And
Mhm. Mhm.
I was 17 years old and I was living with my dad. My dad was super cool. Like it was I would say not no rules, but loose rules when it came to everything.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I had like a strange relationship with other family members because of like their discomfort around us living with my dad and being around him, because his
Yeah.
history and his background was not one that a lot of people agreed with. So you can already
Mm-hmm.
imagine the pride there.
Yeah.
And again, this is a non-sports related analogy, but it brings up the cultural component that we can connect back with
Yeah.
sports.
Yeah.
So my grandmother, who also was around women her whole life, like is
Mm-hmm.
the matriarch of her household, like, and Puerto Ricans, we like, a lot of us, like culturally, we have like our women are pretty respected. A lot of us
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
household, handle finances, like
Mm-hmm.
um the matrilineal like reverence is
Mm-hmm.
slightly different in that sphere than
Mm-hmm.
it is in other like maybe closer similar cultures, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
anyway, the point is, I one time went to my grandma's house,
Mm-hmm.
and my grandma had offered my father coffee,
Mm-hmm.
and never in my life had I ever served my father like I was
Wow.
supposed to serve him.
Mm-hmm.
And
Because you're like, what's wrong with his hands?
right, and like I'll do things out of love for somebody. It's not like,
Yeah.
oh, I
Yeah.
would do it, but I was shocked when I tell you that my grandmother called me for the first time ever in my whole life from the living room to come to the kitchen to serve my father coffee, and served it in a way that she had never served anybody had ever seen in my whole life.
Wow.
And it
Wow.
felt to me like it was a shocking cultural practice. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
know like exactly why, or maybe I guess we can make intelligible guesses about why,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's a profound moment for me, because I remember looking at her and being like, oh, okay, but why? Right? Like I just
Mm-hmm.
didn't understand. And I felt like there was something about like respect in her household, about
Mm-hmm.
image, about like even just like, and I don't want to say it's like misogyny necessarily, but more
Mm-hmm.
so like respect of men in a way that like
Mm-hmm.
I was not privy to, because I was always around women my whole life. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have the same delineation between like female and male tasks, right? Or like, or
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
at least, like
Mm-hmm.
if a little lawn had to be mowed, or a light bulb had to be fixed, or a baby's
Mm-hmm.
diaper had to get changed, it was like, yeah, the only option is a woman. So like, figure it out. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so to have that like element, I felt like so much of her pride was like put into
Mm-hmm.
that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry,
I
you were
think, and oh my goodness, to piggyback on that,
saying.
I think not only is that cultural, but I also believe that a big part of that is speaks to the generational norms,
Yes,
right?
yes.
That transmit over generations within a family system. Because as you were speaking, it brought me to my childhood remembrance of my grandfather never served himself. He was always served either by my grandmother or
Mhm.
one of his daughters or one of his female grandchildren. Though my parents aren't together today, if when we all are together for something, my mom serves my dad. If my mom is not serving my dad, then me or my sister are serving my dad.
Right.
My husband and my sons never fix their own plate. I literally, and I know that there are women whose hair is on fire right now
Yeah.
because they're thinking, here's the thing, it's my choice.
Mhm.
To your point, I take pride in properly nurturing the priests and the kings in my family
Mhm.
because I believe that they deserve royal treatment. But here's the beauty in that. I get treated like a queen.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? I get treated like a queen. I do. I wait on them hand and foot, but there are definitely times when the roles are reversed and they're, Mom, what do you need? Mom, what do you want? Babe, what do you want? What do you need? And just so you know, folk will be able to hear him say that at the top of the hour because I talk about my husband all the time. People are like, she don't have no husband. Like I really do. He's going to be joining us at the top of the hour. But there's a tremendous amount of pride in that culturally. And I shared, Savannah, you don't know this because we hadn't talked much during this week, but I had shared last week, it was either last week or the week before. And you've heard me say before that I've never met my biological father. Well, I still haven't met him because I found out a month or so ago that he passed away in 2004. But I am learning, oh my goodness, I'm learning so much more about my Caribbean heritage, my Jamaican heritage. And it's amazing because guess what? The cultural norm in my paternal household, and I'm talking to my paternal relatives that I'm connecting with and getting to know more, the same thing was there. My from what I'm hearing and learning about the paternal side of my family, my grandmother and my great grandmother on the paternal side of my family, they took care of everybody. They took care of everybody and made sure that everybody was, clothed and fed, and they took pride in that. It was a cultural practice that like ran through their veins. And it's ingrained in me, and I'm okay with it. I'm not saying that women have to do that. They can do whatever they want to do. It's their life. But that's what I choose to do. And we're not even going to get into the law of circulation and the law of attraction, all of that stuff on this episode. But that's the good pride that we're talking about, right? That's interestingly enough, that's where it started. I was taught to take pride in my appearance, in how I speak, in conducting myself as a young lady should, in sitting up and crossing your legs and, not behaving in a manner that was deemed inappropriate for a Christian little girl, right? It wasn't until I got a little older and started smelling myself that the bad pride started creeping in. And here's the thing, I'd love to hear your take on this because we have some similarities in our upbringings, right? The negative pride, Savannah, started to creep in when I began to differentiate myself and take pride in the areas of my life where I hadn't been violated. So it became a defense mechanism. It became a protective factor because the trauma that I had experienced had eroded my sense of self to such a degree that I took an exorbitant amount of pride in my looks. I took an exorbitant amount of pride in my shape. I took an exorbitant amount of pride in my ability to speak correctly. And I took an exorbitant amount of pride in this brain, in the fact that I was always a straight A student. Nobody could ever take that from me. And that was where the negative pride started to creep in, because it was, oh crap, these are the only things that I have control over. This is my safe space, right? My brain. And oh darn, people think I'm pretty. People are always complimenting on how shapely I am. And that's when it became tainted. That's when it became distorted and started to become problematic. And it's then that some of those more negative labels around pride started to be attached to me in my youth and in adolescence.
As I'm thinking about what you're saying, I'm thinking like, how do I, like, I'm not really sure what it always looks like, but I know how it feels to have negative versus positive pride, right? And so as I'm distinguishing those things and thinking about like what that means, I don't know, maybe I can take a stab at trying to describe it for a second.
Sure. Oh, please. Absolutely.
I guess in my mind, the way I'm thinking about negative pride is that it means that your pride is holding you back from either achieving something or from having what we would consider like healthy relationships with others or with ourselves. And so I guess in order to kind of further describe that, because okay, here's one example, because this is where there's kind of a fine line, right? I used to, we talked about this on the last episode, so I won't go into detail about what the Gates Millennium Scholarship is, but I remember I when I first got the scholarship, I was incredibly humble about it. I didn't really tell anybody. It wasn't really something, and it wasn't really something I could talk to a lot of people about, because like sometimes their pride would get in the way of them feeling happy for me.
Right. Say that. Facts. That's real.
Yeah. And I remember I was in the Bronx in a car with a cab driver, and he was from Senegal, and we were playing around, speaking a little bit in French, a little bit in English. He was so cool. And he was talking about his upbringing, his interest in music, his culture, all kinds of stuff. And he asked me what I was doing. And I told him, hey, like I'm in grad school, but I grew up in the Bronx. And I told him a little bit about it. He's like, oh, so how'd you do that? And I told him, and I used the word lucky. when I was describing the fact that I got the scholarship. And he
Mm-hmm.
literally pulled the car over and he turns around and looks at me and he goes, Savannah, that was not luck. That was hard work.
Wow.
And
Wow.
literally stopped the car with me in it. And I look at him and my tears are welling up in my eyes, right? And I look at him and I was kind of shocked and taken aback a little bit. And he said, say it. Say that was hard work, Savannah. And I was
good for him.
Totally. And I had this moment where I like looked down and I could barely utter it. And he said, no, say it. No, say it with pride. Say it with pride. And he was forcing me to say that it was hard work, not luck, that got me where I was. And it was such a moment for me. And he said, you don't have to act that way to anybody. Right. And it was beautiful in the sense that like he knew mm-hmm. that that the gift that was there for me was also a result of positions I've put myself in. Yeah. I believe there was some luck involved. I totally believe there was some luck involved because I can definitely say that there were many deserving students probably that mm-hmm. didn't get it, right? That like at the end of the day, their grades didn't shake out to have it, they're whatever, but who have incredible potential, who like deserve to be, to have had those accolades or that opportunity, right? And like, who am I to say no, right? And at the same time, he was totally right about that. And so I think about it and I say, so what about people on the other hand who would have said, Savannah, don't talk about that or don't share it or don't. Right.
People are going to think you think you're better than them. They're going to think you're bragging. They're going to think you're being boastful. Mm-hmm. They're going to think you think you're so muchy much.
Right. And so what point do you decide, okay, this is a truth that I'm sharing about myself or about my experience that doesn't have to threaten somebody else. Right. And I think that's kind of like the fine line with pride as well. When my partner and I disagree, to take it back to relationships for a second, because this morning before I came on here, he was like, hey, talk about this. And I was like, don't tell me what to talk about. He was like, no, but trust me. He was like, I can't make it, but this is what I wanted to share. And he talked about something that he does with me called cookie. Mm-hmm. And that is when we agree that there's just a difference in the way we see things. And sorry, I keep like going into anecdotes, but this one
you're fine. Okay. Folks need to hear this. They need to hear this information.
Okay, cool. And hopefully, like as a teaching strategy too, like sometimes it sticks better with the story. I'm like,
I use stories all the time to describe stuff because I feel like it helps people to lock it in their mind's eye, and it'll stay with them more because they can actually visualize what it is we're saying.
Totally. Okay, so basically one time I was here at my house with his nephew and my boyfriend, and I love sweets. I'm a huge, I have an insatiable sweet tooth.
It's my Achilles heel.
Yeah, there we go. so I put some cookies in the oven. And I told them, I was like, okay, take them out. I like Savannah likes cookies when they're very soft and they don't like them warm. So anyone hearing, watching, listening, like, yes, I literally am that person who lets brownies, cookies, pie cool off. I don't like it warm. I won't stick it in the microwave. I'll eat it cold, even straight out of the fridge. Like, I'm sorry, I know I'm a weirdo. That's me. These guys like their cookies crunchier on like the harder.
Well, yeah, I need chewy gooey cookies too.
Me too. So in order to get them the way I like them, you have to take them out early and kind of let them finish cooking on the rack, right? The way they like them, you got to leave it in there a minute after what the package says. Okay, these were packaged cookies. I did not make these from scratch this time. This was not Chef Savannah involved. This was a quick fix after a pasta dinner. So, so he and his nephew went over, and they were looking at me, and they're like, Savannah, when do we take it out? And I said, when they're brown. And they opened it, and so I'm looking, and they're looking, and they closed the oven, and I go, no, take them out. And they go, but you said when they were brown. And I said, yeah. And I take
brown, not burned.
Right. And so the whole point was that they looked at each other, and the two of them cracked up. They were laughing at me. They were like, brown, these are not brown at all. And they were super pale cookies, like admittedly super pale. And they were like, oh my God, they're making fun of me. They're saying like, brown, this isn't brown at all. Right. And it was a moment in time that Chris realized sometimes people just look at the same thing totally different. Right. And you can have that moment.
Same cookie, totally different perspective.
At the same exact time, all three of us were looking in the oven.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when we have moments in our relationship where we disagree or we think
Mhm.
that pride is getting in the way, which is
Mhm.
often what happens. Like a lot of times,
Mhm.
like it's our ego is hurt, or we're continuing to
Mhm.
argue or continuing to like press on something that hurt us, or
Mhm.
that didn't sit right, or that made us feel embarrassed in front of another person. Right? That's something that
Mhm.
comes up,
Mhm.
especially with athletes. Right? Like, and I can't wait to return back to like the
Mhm.
sports talk too. Um,
Mhm.
and so what we do as like a diffuser for the situation is sometimes he'll just call it and he'll just say cookie, and we leave it right there, and we
Oh,
just
that's good. That's like the safe word. That's
yep.
like, you know what? This a conflict does not have to arise out of this.
Hmm.
We're going to agree to disagree. That's the
Totally.
safe word. I love it. I love it.
Totally. And there are times where I'm like, that is not cookie, Chris.
Yeah.
This is, but for the most part, when I can really sit back and say, no, you know what? You're totally right. It is
Mhm.
something that, like, maybe I have a preference for, or you have a preference for, and we're just not in
Mhm.
alignment right now.
Mhm.
Um, but that can really happen. So again, like the negative versus positive pride, there is a fine line between it, and defining it can be also difficult, because what informs your decision about what to be prideful about or not comes
Mhm. Mhm.
comes from
Mhm.
interactions with others, comes from
Mhm.
like how they literally make you feel, right? Because somebody doesn't
Mhm.
have to say something to make you feel
Mhm.
any type of way, right? Like they can do
Mhm.
things, they can be through action.
Yeah.
um so yeah.
You said something, I love this flow. Love this flow. You said something that provoked another thought in me with regards to perception. And
Mhm.
it brought back to my remembrance the Colin Kaepernick documentary. And there, and I don't know if you've seen it, and sorry, spoiler alert, folks, I
No,
told you
that's
weeks
okay.
ago to go check it out, right? But there's a part in the documentary where he's a freshman in high school, and he believes that he should be starting for varsity. And yes, we know clearly there were some discriminatory practices that he experienced growing up, being raised by a Caucasian family and all that. But the
Hmm.
powerful lesson that that came back to my remembrance that could be described as some negative pride is that he was so confident in how good he was as a freshman in high school that he wasn't initially receptive. He couldn't swallow his pride initially. He was so aggravated when the coach said to him that being the quarterback is more about being able to throw the ball down the field. In order to be the quarterback of a team, you must be able to lead. And it wasn't until his dad paid for him to go to the football camp of one of the best quarterback coaches and football coaches in the league that was running a summer camp that he realized that he wasn't as good as he thought he was. And that coach kicked his back in. He kicked his back in, but it humbled Colin. It humbled him, and it helped him to be more receptive. And what was also demonstrated in the documentary was something that one of the other players, an older player that was in the camp, said to him. And I don't remember exactly what the guy said, but it gave Colin something to think about, and it humbled him. It humbled him, and it positioned him to be able to receive that constructive feedback that you were talking about. Stop being defensive, stop being prideful, stop thinking that people or that everybody is out to attack you, because in that case, that wasn't what it was about. It wasn't about, oh, they're picking on me because I'm mixed, or oh, they're picking on me because they think that the white guy is better. It's like, no, you got potential out the wazoo, but we got to tweak this baby. We got to fine tune it. And so oftentimes pride gets in the way of people and the growth and the professional development that they need to have in their play, because they're not receptive, because pride has blinders on them and they can't hear. Pride pride deafens you to constructive feedback. Pride blinds you to constructive feedback. And we're not going to go down the cognitive distortion rabbit hole, but pride can also lead to cognitive distortions too, because you get so full of yourself that nobody can tell you anything. And what ends up happening is doors of opportunity can slam in your face as a result of it. And who wants to be there? Who wants to
Totally.
be there?
Totally. And everybody meets their match. That's my belief, right?
Say it. It's the truth.
Everybody meets their match. And so it's important to like walk through life, in my opinion, in a way that honors and respects that and treats and I don't know, because I think like I've learned lessons. I've been prideful. I've done all this, right? And I have certainly missed out on opportunities because of it.
Oh yeah,
I've done that in romantic relationships. I have done that in professional relationships sometimes. Although I would say some of those I don't regret.
Look, woo, say it. Thank you. So look, so glad the pride created a barrier. Got me out of that. It served me well in that instance.
Yeah. And it was something that I've seen recently too. You know, I'm gonna talk about my boyfriend's basketball team for a second. And share. This is a team that I adore. They're so cool. These kids are awesome. First of all, anybody who's in elementary, middle, high school right now, college, students had it rough. This pandemic has really, really made things rough, especially for kids who live in the community that I live in, basically. So one that is dealing with a lot of challenges right now. We have incredible challenges with crime, with drugs, with weapons, with just there's a lot of toxicity here. There's also a lot of like amazing things, right? Like not to say that this is like a community that I am like ashamed of. It's just that we have a lot of work to do to honor the like talent that exists here, right? And to really give opportunity to people. So with that, these kids, school is a huge outlet. Sometimes school is like the safest place. Sometimes school is the only place where they're getting food, right? And like, so anyway, the point is like Chris is an awesome team of students, and he coaches JV basketball. And every single one of these kids is super bright, talented, warm, sweet. They all came into the team at the beginning of the season so different than what they look now. And I'm so lucky to have witnessed their emotional growth, their physical growth, like but both literally doing a better job with their dribbles, understanding the ref when the ref is making a call, as opposed to looking around like it's street ball.
This is talking about me.
You know,
that foul's going on me.
They're like,
man, I thought it was on you.
You know, because they went from looking at the crowd and looking at the coach to like now being like right here with the ref, you know.
Right.
So you know, and it has been again just a humbling and inspiring experience to watch their growth over the past, I would say, like 3.5 months. And right now they had an undefeated season, just to plug them. They're
still undefeated. Yes.
You know.
And they're in tournament play this weekend, right? They're in the tournament. So good luck sending warm vibes, sending winning vibes, that their streak continues.
Yeah, big shout out to them. And they have a tournament next week too. So they're
nice.
They have the potential to win the chip this year. So anyway, with all that, there is one player in particular that he pulls at my boyfriend's heartstrings. Like my boyfriend, this kid is so talented. First of all, and I don't even think he realizes how talented he is, but he can't defeat sleep. And I'm like,
wow.
I might listen to this and be like, Savannah, you know, but
Miss Savannah threw me under the bus on the show.
Yeah. Right. So he wasn't coming to practices in the morning. And and when I tell you this kid has a natural talent in basketball, he really does. Like he's also a soccer player. So it's like amazing. Like the kid's limbs are so dynamic. Like, and I told him to a game recently, and I whispered in her ear and I said, watch when the ball passes by him, he's going to stick out his leg. Just watch. He can't, like, he has such an instinct around it that he sees plays before they happen. People are receiving the ball from him, not even realizing that they were going to get a pass. Like he is an unbelievable player, just super dynamic, super athletic, amazing talent, right? This kid can't defeat sleep. My boyfriend wants to win games, right? He does.
Right.
And when I tell you that this child got benched for 2 games in a row, one which they won by one bucket in the last 16 seconds. And it was so witnessing how, again, we're going back to pride here, witnessing how pride played out in those moments was so important. right?
Wow.
Because you've got the team dynamic, you've got
Mm-hmm.
the parents watching dynamic, you've
Yep.
got your school and your peers are watching, right? Because
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
everybody's seeing that,
Yeah.
like
Oh yeah.
the girls
The
in your
greatest,
class,
look, the best player, and the coach has him bench. What's going on? Okay. Like
right?
just because you're the best doesn't mean you can't bring you behind to practice. You got to bring your butt to practice.
Totally. And there's other athletes that totally shine too. Like there's other
Yeah.
ones that are like fantastic. But the whole point, right, is that even if even if the best are in the game, right, they need other people who are phenomenal, super
Yeah.
athletic and
The
talented to
support.
be there
Mm-hmm.
supporting, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
so they're everyone's visibly seeing that, like, this is an acknowledgement that this person let their team down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Either
Yep.
disappointed their coach.
Yep.
And so there are opportunities where the kids, like, sometimes the kids get so mad that they walk away, right?
Wow. But
And
now that's pride. That's some pride that is just like, whoa,
yep, and this is
whoa.
JV basketball, right? Like
Wow.
this is not like, okay, we're trying for the NBA. Like this is not like
Yeah.
a different level, right? And so it's about, okay, like how do you handle, and like what is it? What is the trigger? Is it that
Yeah.
is it your peers? Is it
Mm-hmm.
your parents? Is it your teammates? Is it the
Mm-hmm.
relationship with your coach that you're jeopardizing? Is it your own disappointment? Like what
Mm-hmm.
is going on in you that
Mm-hmm.
either makes you
Mm-hmm.
walk away, that makes you
Right.
whatever? And so I
Right.
look at this and I'm always like, oh gosh, like, well, why do you rein, like, why don't you rein it in? Like, why do you
Mm-hmm.
talk to it so strong? Why do you know?
Mm-hmm.
And for him, he's like,
I'm
no,
gonna give
nobody
you the
has to learn.
clinical answer to that as soon as you finish your thought.
Yeah, and he just says they're going to be back tomorrow, and like
Mm-hmm.
clockwork, they come back because
Mm-hmm.
pride also has the sense of like belief in oneself, the self
Yeah.
efficacy, this like
Isn't
confidence.
it? It's fluid. Good, bad, good, bad, good, bad, good, bad, good, bad.
Totally.
Wow.
So it has been really interesting to see that manifest as well. So again, like when I was saying that pride is like prevalent all week, especially in sports, that's like the biggest
Mm-hmm.
thing that I've seen it. Luckily, like
Mm-hmm.
ironed out things in relationships or just communication,
Yeah.
work, all that kind of stuff, where I'm not like seeing pride as much, luckily, but we do talk about ego a lot. But in terms of sports,
Yeah.
man, that's the place I'm seeing it still all the time. All the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Unfortunately.
think that to piggyback on what you said about, the letting down of teammates and coach and self and parents and the district and the whole 9 yards. I think that it's really important for people to understand the root. And the root is childhood teachings. Kids imitate their atmosphere. He didn't just learn it all by himself. He did, especially the walking away part. It's like, who did you learn that from? Who conveyed the message that it's okay to walk away just because somebody called you on your BS? Like, if that's not pride screaming from the rooftops. Personality, characteristics.
Totally.
Here's a big one. Fear of loss of control. How is that like uppercut, gut punch, throat punch, left hook, right hook, like
All the above.
yeah, to wait, I'm not in control. What, like it's like you can just see the word pride just shooting out the top of people's head, out their ears. There's and I can't, I'm drawing a blank on the name of it, but the series that Tay Diggs does on Netflix with the football players, and the clip that comes up when you go on that video, you know what I'm talking, that series I'm talking about.
Not Titans, little.
I can't think of it. I'm still drawing a blank. And look, and I'll think of it as soon as we get done. Right? That's in one of the clips, it shows him telling one of the players that he's going to have them play another position, and the guy was like, "But I'm, hypothetically, he was like, but I'm not a running back. I'm not a wide receiver or whatever it is." And coach is like, "And your point is what? I told you that this is the position you're going to play. Changing roles is a tell to that it's a trigger, a stressor, like the whole idea of folks having to shift gears and do something that they don't want to do or serve in a capacity that they don't. I don't sweep floors. Do you know who I am? What? Get out of here. attachment to dominance and power, Savannah. Pride will come up.
It's like that scene in have you seen Friday Night Lights, where he first gets the coach first gets the team, and it shows an image of completely different looking players and just everybody, and it's like, what position are you going for? And the scene just cuts and cuts and cuts, and it says quarterback, quarterback, quarterback. Every single person on the team said, I want to be the quarterback.
Wow.
So funny, right? Because it's like,
right, like stop playing.
And that has nothing to do, right? They're in a sports environment that has nothing to do with a self-assessment of their skill, their role for the team, what they're going to succeed the most at, right? That is all about the perception of what other people think the role of a quarterback is.
Right? That ties into the other one. Keep
going. Sorry.
It's pride is a compensation for inner feelings of low self-esteem. What position gets the most notoriety? How can I feel better about myself if I get the quarterback position and we win? Ooh, everybody's gonna sing my praises. Everybody's gonna talk about how amazing I am, and I get to validate my position and my sense of self by all of this praise that I'm getting from all these other people. But at the end of the day, so oftentimes people make the mistake of thinking that just because an athlete is really, really good, that somehow means they don't have self-esteem issues. And that couldn't be further from the truth. It couldn't be further from the truth. Pride is definitely, it's a compensation for inner feelings of self-esteem. So I only have you for 8 more minutes and then you gotta roll out. So how do we, in sports, in life beyond athletic involvement, what do we do to let go of this pride?
That's a super loaded question, but I'll take a stab at it. I mean,
yeah, let's well, you know what, let's start with, how do you combat it? How do you combat it in work, in play, in your relationship with Chris? How does that play out in your life?
Honestly, for me, it was all about self-development. Like I feel like overcoming pride is, to me, very individual. Cause like, I can rein myself even in a circumstance where I'm dealing with somebody else that has a lot of pride, in a way that can change the dialogue or still lend itself to a healthy relationship, even if they have overcome it themselves. And so I'll reflect on just like me as an individual, because that's like the best I can speak to. And I would say, a big part of it is understanding, well, honestly, you can really make a list. Like where do I derive confidence from?
Yeah.
What in my life makes me feel, or I guess I would say, like, what in my life drives confidence and what in my life threatens my confidence. Right?
That's good.
And then between those, I try and at least do a mental assessment of, okay, like, I'm going to supercharge some of the ones that do like the positive thing, and I'm going to try and kill the ones that don't. Right. And so for me, it looked like enrolling in therapy, right? It looked like processing the disappointment around relationships or instances where pride was the detriment, right? Because I've experienced that a lot, right? Like I've had situations where it's like, okay, like you could have done this for me, or we could have worked together on this, but pride is the thing that stopped us from, or like pride around an argument which stopped us from getting on the train to go do this fun thing, or is what soured our mood before something really positive, right? And so I was tired of feeling that way, and so for me, doing it like on my own, at least, looked like maturing and working on emotional intelligence, really. So working on empathy for others, working on naming ego. I do this a lot in my professional relationship. I work with a co-founder with what I'm doing, right? And my title is CEO, right? We have to name a lot. That I'm not a CEO right now. I'm not what a conventional CEO looks like, sounds like. It's a title, right? And so in a relationship with my co-founder, somebody who also is capable of making executive decisions, right? That's what the title is. then I have to like share that or name that or say, hey, listen, like the reason that I do or don't want to work with you maybe is because of this, and that, right? Like when there's, and we deal with it all the time, especially as people who are like, whether it's beauty that people critique or anything, like there's the envy, the jealousy, all the words and the things that you've listed in the beginning that definitely come into play. And that can be really, really tough. And so I would say like learning to deal with other people's like pride and being able to manage that without it interfering with how I navigate those scenarios and conversations. So kind of the best
that's huge, because what you touched on is a key clinical element that I teach, where helping people to understand the importance of being vulnerable in a way that can encourage the other person to want to change and to want to swallow their pride. We've been hearing that forever, right? You have to swallow your pride. And I think about it too within the context of the athlete who perhaps thought that, well, no, I'll use the young man that you were talking about. You know, I would imagine that he had to swallow some pride. You know, it's like, oh wait, Coach benched me. Doesn't he know who I am? What do you mean? What do you mean? I need to go sit down, you know? And that's a crushing blow. Or the kid who believes that they have it going on and think that they qualify to make varsity, and not only do they not make varsity, they don't even make JV. And you talk about a crushing blow to someone's pride, but there's a vulnerability that's associated with one's ability and willingness to be able to let go of pride, because you have to be able to recognize what contributed to your pride in the first place. You know, in that instance, have folk been hyping you up? Who's your hype man? Who's your hype woman? Who is it that's feeding your head with all of this stuff, telling you that you're all that, the soda, the rebate, and the bag of chips? And then, wait a minute, you don't even make the team. And then you know what ends up happening, right? Folks, they don't even know. Then you go to throwing shade. Now you're salty, and you're acting all crazy and talking about people and tearing the team apart and doing all these crazy things. And it's like, no, swallow your pride and humble yourself. Open your mind, open your heart to the importance of being transparent in a way, and this one's huge, in a way that allows you to give up the burden of controlling and owning others. That one's huge. It's
yeah.
You don't have to, it doesn't have to be your way all the time. You know, we've been hearing people say for years, it's not always all about you.
Totally.
It's not about you. It's not always about me, right? And we have to be willing to recognize that the only person that we have control of is ourselves. And I tell people, particularly when I'm doing couples therapy, Savannah, that if you each could learn to swallow your pride and stop making it your business to point out all of the other person's flaws, in essence, constantly one-upping, you know, you're so full of pride that you're always trying to do something that one-ups you over your partner, or in play. Because here's the thing, when you think about that within the context of athletic involvement, we know that there's this competitive edge, right? The best player starts, you know, the person that works the hardest and all of that. But pride comes, I believe, that it goes beyond the competitive edge when your need to show your superiority is done in a way that belittles, degrades, and demeans the other person. I feel very, very strongly about that, because you don't, when you're good, when you're the best, you don't have to make a public service announcement.
And sometimes it's okay to apologize.
Yeah, how about that?
It's okay to admit that you're wrong. And Dr. Fitz, I'm still working on all of this, right? Like I'm still on understanding.
Well, me too. I have not arrived. Okay. I tell my clients all the time, Savannah, I tell my clients all the time, I practice what I preach. You know, I don't want folks to think, I literally just said this to a client yesterday. I said, how is it that you think that I became a relationship expert? I said, through failed relationships. I said, I've had to eat a lot of crow. I've shed a lot of tears. I've had a lot of heartache and pain and suffering. And don't get me wrong, I've had some positive experience, in life and love and my support of sports and all of that stuff too. But a lot of what I learned was I learned what not to do. And as Ronnie always says, Ronnie says in life, there's wins and lessons, not losses, right? So from my wins, yeah, you learn great stuff from your wins, but from my lessons, I have literally, and it's crazy. When I was younger, I used to say, I want to be able to teach a class on how people should go about having healthier relationships. It was like before I was a therapist, and it's just so important to recognize that humility is liberating. And when we in our relationships, whether it's our relationship with sports or our relationship with people outside of sports play or even in the context of sports play, humility goes a long way. My grandmom used to say, you get more bees with honey than you do with vinegar. Humility goes a long, long, long way. You staying or you going? Because I know you have an appointment that you have to get to.
Yeah, I have to run. I did want to just,
yeah.
I remembered one thing that I would love to just share.
Oh, please.
That ties some things in, if you don't mind. And then,
oh, please, go ahead.
And then I will dip out. I wish I could stay for even longer.
No, you have been wonderful. I love you to pieces.
Thank you. This has been awesome to talk about because it helps me reflect on my own evolution, so to speak. But I wanted to just touch on when we were talking about how do you manage pride, and I talked about my own managing pride. Part of it too was for me recognizing what pride was mine and what pride belonged to somebody else that I inherited.
Yeah.
And that brings us back to what you were saying about serving food, right? Maybe if somebody's listening who finds themselves in a different mindset or a different generation that says, I'm not going to do that, that's okay. But it's how do you navigate that conversation with somebody else who maybe inherited that expectation or that pride? And so how do you navigate that conversation? How do you develop and build that sense of security, that sense of confidence, that sense of sharing positivity in relationship, that demonstration of love, affection, care, respect, right? Without sacrificing or jeopardizing what you bring, right? And what you believe. And then it also comes back to the sports conversation. Are you upset that you didn't make varsity because your parent is upset that you didn't make varsity? Some kids play sports and they don't even love the sport, right?
That's right. Oh, that's so true. That is so true.
In basketball who want to be in karate or who want to be in art, right? Like think about kids in college whose major is bio when they really wanted to do theater, right? I have sat in classes next to people like that, and it's just, so when you inherit pride, you also have to be conscientious of what you do want to carry and why you carry it, right? If that's familial, if it's cultural, and then also what you want to let go of, because that reflection piece is also really important too. And I think I found as I became an adult that I held on to certain components of pride that did not belong to me, that they were not mine.
Yeah, that's real. That is real. Savannah, thank you so much for joining me today. I know Ronnie is eternally grateful for you covering for him today. Send warm vibes and win hugs to Chris and the team. You all know what you all are coming back. You and Chris are coming back. I think it's in April. Thank you. We love you much. HT is home now. You're stuck with us. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Keep making a difference and leaving this amazing footprint that you're leaving on the world. Thank you, dear heart. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And enjoy the rest of the conversation. I know that this is always my favorite thing to do because we have really raw, authentic conversation. That's super valuable to me. I will leave you to continue discussing and maybe there's stuff to pick up on with the inheritance of pride, but
there it is.
Thank you. I'm
All right,
honored
dear.
to share the space.
All right, dear.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye. Mr. Bounce. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Dr. Pitts keeps talking about her husband every week on the show. There he is. He exists. I really do have a husband. This is my husband, Eric Bounds. And sweetheart, I invited you to spend the last half hour of the show with me today because we are talking about conflict resolution and conflict management, but what that looks like within the context of pride in our relationships, right? Whether it's our relationship as a couple, our relationship with sports. Savannah and I did a ton of coverage on what that looks like in the athletic arena. And, you know, we'll flow back and forth with that too. But what I want to do is we're shifting to more of the relational conversation is I want to give our viewing and listening audience some indication of warning signs for them of pride in their marriage or in their intimate partner relationship. So here's some signs, folks, that pride is eroding the integrity, health, and strength of your relationship. Everything is personal. It's all about you. Fault finding, refusal to be influenced by your spouse or your partner, ignorance of the need for other people or your partner or spouse. Oh, here's one, babe. Here's one. I'm probably going to get hate mail. Refusal to submit to authority. You know, that folk get to cussing and fussing and acting a nut whenever that word submission gets entered into anything that has to do with the relationship dynamic. So you and I are going to flesh that out for them so that they understand what that really means.
No problem.
Inability to see opposing viewpoints, never asking for help, always expecting service, an absence of sacrifice and submission, and refusal to say I'm sorry. So the way that I would like to transition into this part of the conversation, and then the way we'll close out today's show is I'm going to give some relationship tips on how to overcome pride in this type of relationship situation. So what I want to ask you, I deliberately didn't tell you that I was going to ask you this question because I wanted you to answer off the cuff.
Sure.
What's it like being married to a therapist?
What's it like being married to a therapist? Well, you have to be extremely humble. You have to be able to look at yourself in a different light. I can honestly say you don't try to diagnose me. So it's not a matter of, oh, well, he's got this. Let me go to the DSM and just, say what's wrong with my husband. So you've never done that. It's actually been quite the latter. It's been more, actually, I've learned a lot. I've learned more about myself these last 5-6 years, just by being in your circle and just by hearing some of the things that you do. So that's been my experience.
Okay. So I'm not that bad.
Well, we are live. So.
No, but you know what though? So here's the thing. So
no, you're not bad, baby. You're not bad. You're not bad.
So look, so before you came on the air, Savannah and I both took ownership of some things. And I started out the show by listing some words or some labels, if you will, that are associated with people who have an issue with pride. And I was, I was ashamed. I was ashamed because all of these words, with the exception of two or three, I have been called or accused of in my life. And I'm just going to read them again for your sake, because this is something that I want to publicly say that is a way, it's an area that you keep me grounded in. And I tell folks oftentimes, I've said on the show, that you balance me. You know, the running joke is my husband tells me all the time, babe, guns in the holster, guns
put them away. Put
holster
them away.
because I'm always guns blazing. But these words are associated with people who have an issue with pride. Prideful, opinionated, egotistical, judgmental, envious, fault-finding, arrogant, disdainful, haughty, coveting, greedy, spiteful, and autocratic. I've never been called greedy. I've never been called disdainful or haughty. All the rest of them, I've had the gut punch, the throat punch, the psh, psh, I've been hearing them since I was a little girl. And what I realized just in Savannah and I fleshing it out is that, I mean, you know, my family, you're a part of this vast Pitts family, and now the Riavas family too, right? That in the beginning, part of it was just cultural, right? It was like in a positive way, I was always taught to take pride in my appearance and how I spoke and how I said and my performance in school and all of these positive things. But it wasn't until later on in my childhood that negative pride, egotistical pride took root in my life. And it was, you know, it's not an excuse because it was still wrong, but it was a defense mechanism. It was a protective factor because at that stage I had experienced so much trauma that it was like, okay, this corner here, you know, we've mentioned that pride is connected to being controlling and overbearing and domineering, right? Well, this stuff right here, I can control this. Nobody can take this from me without even realizing that opened the door for negative pride to come in and take root in my life. And I battled it, and I battled it for years. And that's one of the areas that you balance me out because you help me to stay humble. You hold me accountable, and you stretch me. You stretch me.
Well, if I can be so bold, we both do that for each other. Like, you know, you hold me accountable, you stretch me. I mean, I am becoming the best version of myself because of us, you know, because of conversations that we've had and real conversations that we've had. You know, a lot of people just don't want to talk about the truth. They don't want to sit down and have adult conversations. And sometimes, as you say, you got to own your own junk. I found out more about myself and in your words, my own junk than I've ever had my entire life. And then you now have to sit back and analyze and say to yourself, well, is that me or is that somebody else? So we both hold each other accountable. We stretch each other. That's the way I feel about it.
So let's talk about, you know, the different types of things that cause conflict in relationships. And, you know, we're not going to air all our dirty laundry or anything like that. But
money.
You know what?
Money. Oh, did I say it? Money.
You know what? I just said we're not airing all our dirty laundry now. but speak to that. Speak to that because and the reason why I want you to speak to that is because finances is the number one cause for divorce in the US. And I mean it's the number one cause for divorce. It's the number one cause for breakups in the US. So what is it about money that causes conflict?
Well, I mean, I really, really like Steve Harvey because he talks so honestly about men. And people, I think a lot of people miss the point of what he's saying. He just said something, I think it was on Instagram. He said there's three things about a man that makes him. It's like who he is, what he does, and how much money he makes. Those are the three things that men truly care about. Any man worth his salt wants to take care of his responsibilities. And when he can't do that, it's frustrating. And what a lot of women don't know is that, you know, we're trying to figure it out. You know, it doesn't mean that you're a deadbeat dad. It doesn't mean that you're a loser. It doesn't mean that, you know, all those negative things that go around with Black men. It really is that, you know, man, I can't figure it out. Or man, I'm trying and I'm spinning my wheels and I'm not getting anywhere. And it's frustrating. And I feel the weight of the world on my shoulders.
Yeah.
And and who cares, right? Like,
Yeah.
when women do what they do, they just make it look easy, and we know it's not. But,
Right.
women have been taking care of the family, they've been taking care of our children,
Mm-hmm.
and they make it look easy. But when we come up short, it's a big deal. And that's where the conflict comes, because then when you have those hard conversations, in your mind, you already know what you want to do, but sometimes you might not be able to do it. It's extremely frustrating.
Do you think, in your opinion, when you think about, let's look at it from a family systems perspective. I'm sure you probably could throw up on that word right about now after all these years, but let's think about it from a family systems perspective and what that looks like generationally, right? And based upon that reflection, do you believe that part of the man's struggle is pride?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely, I do. Well, number one, what I really want to touch on is, as Black people, we don't teach, uh, our kids. We don't teach each other about
Mm-hmm.
money,
Mm-hmm.
and that's extremely important. The dominant
Mm-hmm.
culture and other cultures, they know about money. They're born into money,
Yeah.
but that's not the case with us. So we're handicapped from the start. Now,
Mm-hmm.
you haven't been taught about money. Some people not even a checking or savings account, 401k, any of those things, credit cards,
Right.
credit, and now
Right.
you're expected to succeed. You
Right.
know what I mean? It's not
Mm-hmm.
going to happen. It's just not
Mm-hmm.
going to happen. But your question was about pride.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, it's hard to open up and be vulnerable. Let's call it
Mm-hmm.
what it is. It's really
Mm-hmm.
difficult to be vulnerable, and you have to have a lot of trust, which a lot of men don't have.
Mm-hmm.
And to be vulnerable,
Can you
especially
speak
with
to that real quick? Not to cut you off, but can you flesh that out a little bit for our audience? Why
as
don't
far
men
as
have trust? In your opinion,
um,
why is it so hard for men to trust
well,
around that?
number one, we're taught to, don't show any emotion.
Mm,
Don't cry, take it
hmm.
on the chin, be a man,
Yeah, yeah.
all those things that are the opposite of being vulnerable, are
Hmm.
being the
Hmm.
opposite of being able to trust someone, to tell them, hey man, you know what? I'm scared,
Yeah.
I feel like a failure,
Hmm.
I'm nervous, I'm anxious, all
Hmm.
those things we're not taught that that's what men are supposed to do.
Hmm.
Because if you do those things, oh, he's soft.
Hmm.
Oh, look at him, he's crying, he's over there crying. What are you doing? You're a punk, all those negative things, which is a lie, right?
Yeah.
We're in 2022 now, but
Hmm.
that's what makes it so difficult, babe. Is
Okay.
that we're not taught as men to be vulnerable. We're not taught to be
Hmm.
communicators.
Hmm.
It's all taught to be internalize it, and that's
Hmm.
really what the difficult part is.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. 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 So one of the things that you and I talk about a lot. We talked about it, when we were just friends. We talked about it when we started dating. We talked about it, since we've been married, is this relationship between pride and how it shows up in unhealthy relationships. And I
Mhm.
think that it's so incredibly important for our audience to know that, you know, it's almost like when you're dealing with one or both parties in a relationship that are dealing with pride for whatever reason, right? And giving folks a break, like I said, pride for me, the negative pride started as a defense mechanism and a protective factor. And I know I'm not on that island by myself. It comes from somewhere, right? But when you think about, okay, well, what does that look like when two people who both have issues with pride come into a relationship, and oh, by the way, the relationship is unhealthy? That pride is gasoline on a raging fire. It
Yeah,
is
that's what I'm saying.
absolutely.
Disaster.
Yeah, yeah, it really does. It can be disastrous. So when you look at, I want our audience to be clear on, well, Dr. Pitts, what is, an unhealthy relationship? How do I know if I'm in an unhealthy relationship? Okay, I'm total transparency. I think that a big part of that is Captain Obvious, but I'm going to spell it out. Your partner attempts to exercise control and ultimately power over you. They pressure you to engage in intimate acts that are contrary to what you feel comfortable doing. Your partner is very controlling. You don't feel able or willing to communicate with your partner. Your partner is being repeatedly dishonest. They call you names or constantly question and criticize your choices and decisions. You don't feel you have any control over whether you use contraceptives or the ability to avoid pregnancy, or you don't feel like you're able to insist on safer physical intimacy. You don't feel able to go out and see your friends without the other person being angry, sad, jealous, or clocking your every move. You're made to feel guilty for the choices that you make.
Been there, done
Any
that.
form of abuse, any form of abuse, verbal, emotional, physical, sexual, economic abuse. The reality of it is, and I said this on one of the other shows, and I want to reiterate it because I really want people to start taking personal inventory in their relationships. Personal inventory regarding whether or not they are guilty of bringing pride into the relationship. Don't worry about what the other person is doing. Focus on yourself. You point your finger at your spouse or your partner, or your teammates or your coach or your trainer, you have three fingers pointing back at you. We could all be in much healthier relationships if we were willing to take responsibility and accountability for what our contribution is to the conflict. That's a major element in resolution. You have to own your junk. You have to recognize what bricks belong in each person's backpack. Who is responsible for what? And instead of worrying about what the other person is doing, you do your part, you make your contribution to a healthier, more whole, safe, integrity-filled relationship, regardless of what that relationship dynamic is, and it can make a difference. So how do we have 8 minutes, so I'll keep track of the time. How to give them some insight, how do we resolve conflict?
Conversations at 2:00 in the morning.
You know what?
Babe, what? You know what? No, I don't, but I'm sure you're gonna tell me. No, no, seriously.
No dinner for him.
No, seriously, just having those conversations. I mean, you and I are both mature enough to be able to talk to one another honestly and say, hey, look, this is my trigger. This is my hot button. I need to talk about this. And then the other person will be quiet and let them finish their thought to communicate and say exactly what the problem is. It's at that point where you have to stop and say, okay, is this the truth? And start thinking about, why the person is saying, what they're saying. What I say repetitively all the time is that relationships are so important. And when I say that, I mean, if I know you, then I know what your intent is.
Ooh,
if I don't know you, then I'm going to get in my feelings, right? So if my wife says something to me and I don't know her or my girlfriend or whatever, because what do we do? First thing we want to do
You got a girlfriend?
We want to jump in. Yeah, you didn't know. So the first thing we want to do is jump and have sex, right? So now that's distorting the entire relationship. I say to people, how many times have we jumped into bed and had sex with somebody? You don't even like them. Can't stand them. And the thing of it is, the sex is great, but the relationship is horrible. I don't know you. You're a stranger. So of course I'm going to take everything that you say the wrong way because I didn't take the time to get to know you as a person. So that's the key. Once you know the individual, then you understand their intent. If you don't know the person, it still could be a little difficult even when you know them, but not as much when you understand, who the person is. So that's really what has benefited me in our relationship.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give some nuggets concerning relationship conflict resolution, and then I'm going to give some nuggets concerning ways to overcome pride. And I want you to grab one from each to give your minute and 30-second take on, and then I'll close this out. Is that all right?
I'll do my best. Yeah.
Okay. So as it relates to relationship conflict resolution, and I say this all the time to my clients, all the time, focus on the problem and not the person. It's easier for people to feel like you're not attacking them when you're not attacking them, right? If you're not attacking them, it's kind of, and there are people who still might think it, but in your heart of hearts, if you know that you're focusing on the problem and not the person, it makes it easier to diffuse the situation because you're not attacking the person. Use reflective listening. And what that means is you want to, and I do this to him all the time, and sometimes we do it just clowning and playing around. And sometimes we do it seriously. What did you just hear me say? And he'll do it to me.
I don't know. You asked me 5 questions at once. I don't know what you said.
and that grates on his nerves. He'd be like, babe, for real, what question do you want me to answer? You just asked me 5 questions at one time. So that's, and I've done that. I'm better.
You're a lot better than you were in the beginning. Absolutely.
Use I statements. And so what that looks like is, I don't say, you said, you did, and it's your fault. I said, when this happens, this is how I feel. I don't even put him in it. When this happens, I feel this. When that happens, I feel this. When that happens, I feel this. Use I statements because it takes the defensiveness out of the way. It puts the other person on the offense, not the defense. Know when to take a timeout. We are fantastic at that. Knock on wood. and part of it is because we're both thrown off. Transparency. we're both a little tilted to the left. Our cheese has slid a little bit. So because we both know that we can both. See.
I'm sorry, Dr. Pitts, please continue.
Because we both know that we can go there, we have really remained committed to putting ourselves in timeout. So if we're having one of the hard conversations that can be emotionally charged, we know when to say, you know what, I need a minute, I need an hour, I need till Sunday, I need till next Friday. Because some stuff it's the hard conversations, right? So you got to know when to take a step back and collect yourself so that you don't say something that you really don't mean. And then you have to work toward a resolution. It's, he knows I'm solution focused. What we're going to do about it? But that's not how most men are. Most men are solution focused. You want to fix it all the time, right? So let me give this rundown real quick of ways to overcome pride. And then you can just pick 1 or 2 things that you want to speak to real quick, and then I'll close this out. So how do, Dr. Pitts, everything that you've said today, I realized that, you know what, I am guilty, Your Honor. It was me. I was the one bringing all the pride into the relationship. You can start by accepting your shortcomings. You're not perfect. I tell my clients all the time, I don't levitate and I don't walk on water. I don't have every single solitary answer to every single solitary thing. There are some things that I just don't know. And I am humble enough to say, you know what, I have not a clue. Accept what your shortcomings are. Learn to apologize. We do say we're sorry and we mean it. I told y'all I've grown because I wouldn't you back in the day. I ain't saying sorry for Jack because I don't mean it. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And I am quick to admit that I'm wrong and I've learned to apologize. Look at the big picture. What's really going on? Are you nitpicking? Are you not picking your battles? Everything is not a debate. Everything is not a fight. Everything is not a crisis or a catastrophe. Communicate constantly. You must communicate constantly. That's self-explanatory. Don't be too serious all the time. I don't know if you all can tell. I do not take myself too seriously. We laugh all the time.
All the time.
All the time. All the time. It's you don't have to look like you have a gas bubble all the time. It's okay to laugh.
Yeah, go ahead and let it out.
Compete. Let it out.
I hate in your heart, let it out.
Compete in moderation. We don't compete at all. We don't, that's not something that we've ever done. We don't compete with each
other. No need.
Learn to compromise. We are getting better at that. I think we're getting much better at that.
Yeah. And
we have always literally and we've known each other since we were kids, but we reconnected now. It's 35 years. It was, we hadn't seen each other in 29 years when we reconnected. And now we're going on 7 years in, but we're very, very happy about each other's success. And that's my encouragement to you. And we are committed to striving to grow together, even when we get on each other's last nerve, because we do get on each other's nerves. Don't think we don't, because we do. So which one? Pick one.
So I'm not going to pick any of them. Okay. Real quick, what I'd like to say is this, ladies, when you are critiquing your husband, your spouse, your boyfriend, whatever, and that's okay, right? But stroke his ego. You know what I mean? Don't tell us everything that we're doing wrong. Because if you want your man to react or you want him to change, please don't tell him what he's not doing. All the time. We need to hear the positives as well. Because then we can weigh it out and say, okay, well, I need to work on this, but she is happy in this area. Because there's nothing worse than feeling like, you're in a relationship where there's nothing that you can do to change it. There's nothing that's going to make this person happy. And oh, by the way, happiness comes within. I can't make you happy and you can't make me happy. So that's that. And communication. Women love to say, oh, I want to talk. I just want to talk. And a lot of times we don't want to talk. We're not made like women. That's not a sexist comment. That's a fact. I'm not saying that you can't communicate, but we can't communicate as much as y'all do. So when understanding that, and Bishop talks about this all the time, we need time to think. We need time to process. If you said it to us, we're listening and we're trying to figure it out. That's all I have.
Thank you, baby. That was good. That was really, really good. So I'm gonna close us out on this note to what you said. So, and I'm transparent all the time on the show. So what he said about affirming the good that they're doing and not just letting them hear about what they're doing wrong. That's a work on for me. My expectations are like way, way, way up here. And I'm accustomed to doing things a certain way. So making that adjustment to accept the fact and really truly humble myself to remember that everything is not going to be done necessarily the way I want it to be done. But just because it's not done the way I want it to be done doesn't mean that it's not going to be done with excellence.
Right.
That's been a work on for me. I think I've gotten a little bit better, but I will acknowledge I still have a ways to go. But I was absolutely positively guilty of giving him, some people give a honey-do list. I was giving a honey, this is what's wrong with you list. And it wasn't fair, and it was mean, and it was insensitive. And I had to work on that, and I had to hear his heart and make the commitment to humble myself and swallow my pride and say, okay, there's a lot that he is doing right. And these things he is committed to working on. And I have to be able to trust God that it's going to be okay as he continues to allow God to order his steps and to lead him. And that's it. That's all we have for today. Sweetheart, thank you so very much for coming on the show and joining me today. I truly, truly, truly appreciate it. Folks, we will see you back next week at the same time. Hopefully, Ronnie will be back with us by next Saturday. Send warm thoughts and prayers his way, and have a great weekend. Don't forget to tune in to the NBA All-Star and the HBCU shootout between Howard and Morgan. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.